Hey, how you doing? It's 4:20. Let's get high. Yes. Well, one of the interesting things about the way these 7 weeks line up this year, you see, the Hebrew calendar is not really a Hebrew calendar. I mean, we've adopted it, but it's a calendar that goes back like way before the Jewish people. In fact, it starts at the very beginning on what we know as the first day of Tishrei. Oh. Okay. Someone asked me a question. Thank you. I'll get to it. So these ancient months, even though actually some of them mean something in Hebrew, but they predate Hebrew. And the interesting thing is that the world, I think, is the Epic of Gilgamesh, and there he mentions many of the Hebrew months. Says I'm okay. Many of the Hebrew months, and the Hebrew months go according to the moon, and yet there is a commandment in the Torah that our holidays have to line up according to the season. For example, Ramadan by the Muslims, that it goes all around the year because they just have a 12-month year. But since we have to, we can't have Pesach, which is supposed to happen in the spring, happening in the fall or the summer, people get mixed up. So they figured out a very complicated way, taking the 19-year cycle of the moon and the 21-year cycle of the sun, and add a whole two. I'm sorry, this keeps saying that I'm unstable. I'm sorry, I'm particularly unstable today. I'm always a little unstable. It's good to be unstable because if you're too stable, then everything's just too predictable. Anyways, yes. So as a result of this, when you put the Hebrew calendar against the Roman calendar, which is adjudicated by the sun, so we always land somewhere else in the Roman calendar. But this year, so it happens that because it's always the day after the first day of Pesach that we start, so that was Saturday night. So therefore, we start Sunday night. So therefore, So therefore, we're always saying like the day that was. See? Like this day was the 5th day of the week. So tonight, you'll say this is the 5th day of the Omer. Well, what it means, I mean, just for me particularly, these little broadcasts, we always get like, it's nice the way it folds into the broadcast. And so this is the last broadcast of the week of Gevurah. So I thought I'd speak about Gevurah. Gevurah, basically it means strength. And as you see, that a Gibor is called a strong man. And but there's much more to it than that. So I thought I would share some of that. It really relates back to these first two attributes of kindness and severity, relate back to the elements. That water is kindness and fire is Gevurah, is severity, and we see that kindness is water, because everything needs water to live, and just laps up the water. But fire is a whole different thing. Fire is about destruction. And if there is no water, then things dry up, and it's kind of just a slow way of fire. Like rust is really metal on fire. And it's interesting, if you get two pieces of finely polished metal, like in outer space, like actually in outer space, not, inside a capsule, because there's no atmosphere, they'll just like become one. Okay, because it's the atmosphere that keeps them separate from one another. That's when you're doing is you're burning up that oxygen so the metal can come together. And so you have these two different sides. The right side, which is the kind side, and the water side. The left, which is the severe side. So one might think that these are gender oriented, and they are. The right side is male, and the left side is female, which seems anti-intuitive, because one thinks his woman is being soft and his man is being hard, severe. But first of all, what we appear to be is usually opposite than what we are, and but second of all, that these attributes of kindness and severity come from inside. That women are stronger than men internally. They give babies, they live long. They have babies, they live longer, and men that were weaker, and so after taking 50, 60 years of hits, a lot of men, they've had it, man. I'm finished. And a man, there's a saying that an old man in the house is a curse, but an old woman is a blessing. Why? Because the man's going, I used to work. When I worked, I was something. Now I don't work, I'm nothing. But the woman, because she's very connected to the house and to the children and to grandchildren. And it's such a blessing to have her there, because she does things that the others can't do. You're just the mother can't do, and the father's not going to do it. And you got the grandmother there to do it, and you're, oh, what a blessing this woman is. So and there's another thing, that strength comes from contraction. Like if we want to pick up something, we have to contract our muscles in order to be able to have that strength. And of course, contraction is one of the attributes of woman, how she is able to give birth through a series of contractions. And I'm just wondering that Jason wrote to me. And he said that I had mentioned yesterday that Abraham left Ur. For some reason, can't remember what you said. So I'd just like to say that one of the things of doing this broadcast, you can go back and you can you can listen to him again, and you can remember what I said. And anyways, so but this disparity, of course, between water and fire is something that goes all the way back to God. I mean, God created everything. These are elemental things, water, air, and fire. So it says this is the first sound in creation was what? Emish. And Emish means like the aleph is avir, and the mem, avir means air, and the mem is mayim, water, and the shin is aish, fire. The first thing that had to be done was these was these I forgot what I'm saying. Yes, in the creation of heaven. So first had to be created the element of air, and that stood between fire and water. So they didn't just nullify each other. And many there's and those are like the kind of primal materials that were made, and all the other materials were some mixture of that. And the whole thing came from these elements, which the elements actually came from colors, and because each one has a different vibration. And according to the vibration, it has a direction, like fire goes up and earth goes down, gravity, and water spreads out and air disperses. And these are the, these are the directions, in creation. And all of this came about because of the first two names of God, which is Yud He Vav He, 4 letters of God. We don't know how to pronounce, so we'll say Adonai, which means master, and Elohim. Elohim can be translated as God of plurality, because Eloha is God and Yam is plurality. And so neither one is God. I mean, they're both names, just like, I got a name. My name's Dovid B. Timeless, but that ain't me. That's my name. And God has names, but God's names, they're like really alive and cognizant and feel everything. So we try to be respectful of, of God's name. I was telling someone recently that, one of the things that we do is we, whether the customs, I don't believe it's a law, maybe it's probably a law, but it's not a commandment. But, the commandment is not to, I can't think of the word I want, but not to demean the Torah. So one of the ways of demeaning the Torah, because it has God's name in it and His prophecy, is we're not naked in front of the Torah. Like I live in the same room with my books, so I'm careful in the morning, at night before I go to bed, to cover my books up, so that I can be naked, change clothes, whatever, and not be naked in front of my books. It's called a bizion, like a disgrace. You shouldn't do like disgraceful things in front of your books. I don't know why I'm telling you this, because what I wanted to tell you about was really about the elements, and how the elements are the 4 elements are connected to the 4 letters of God's name, and God's name, the Yud He Vav He, is the name of kindness. And the actually it's not, that's really not true. It's really the center. It's the right leg. It's Ale, which is interesting because Ale means when God is being kind, we call God Ale. Ale Elyon, the kind, supreme God. But when you add Him to it, it becomes Elohim, which becomes severity. And what's the difference? The difference is that water has the nature to meld together. You can't really divide water. The only way you can divide water into drops, is to put them through some sort of contraction, like an eyedropper. And you keep all the water up here, and you have a really little hole, and you press a little bit of water through that little hole, and only through that effort are you able to divide a drop of water or a drop of liquid from the other liquid, because liquid has this nature to meld together. But Elohim, and this is really, see, the essence of strength. The essence of strength is to divide. Now, some, like Rome, they use it like divide and conquer, but that's not what it means. It means like, like if you have all your in one place, you're not as strong as if you spread them out. So something happens here, something can be done over there. And there's a place in Torah where Yaakov is going to meet his brother Esav, and Esav's coming with 400 men, and he doesn't know what to do, so he divides up the camp, thinking if one gets hit, the other one can run away or can ambush them from behind. You became stronger the more things that there are. And it's interesting, one of the things in nature that causes this is called the free radical. And what the free radical does is it causes elements to break down. And through the breaking down of elements, we have diversity. Otherwise, we'd only have just a very few elements. And through that, we have diversity. And also, like, diversity is obviously what gives us strength. This is really the strength of America, that we are the most diverse country in the world. No one's as diverse as America, because there's kind of an equality. I guess it kicks in after a couple of, generations, unless you're black or brown. But like the Jews went through it at a particular time. People hated the Jews. My mother used to tell me here in LA that there would be signs, dogs and Jews keep off the grass. But after a while, the Jewish people made their mark in America and were respected for that, and they could now go on the grass with the dogs. And, and the Irish came, and the Italians came. Like, one of the mean things they would say about Italians, they call them wops, which means without papers. Same thing we have now, except now it's the Mexicans. Every immigrant seems that they have to go through this as part of the initiation, it seems, of coming to America and being on the lower, strata. Of course, now things have changed, because they now need people who have very, specific job abilities, and then they get like fast track. They can come, But for the rest of us, we just have to, kind of wait in line. But and once you're here, generally, you have a business or you work for someone, and certainly after 2, 3, like I'm third generation. My grandfather came here from the Ukraine, my grandmother, and they came from the Ukraine, and they settled in Brooklyn because there was a Jewish community there. And I met a rabbi who had made matzah with my grandfather, and back in 1920 or something. So and it's through this interweaving of different peoples. That's what makes America strong. And the only thing that works against America, and really against most countries, is religion. Religion, is the thing that always wants to separate us into, your God and my God. Like, there's the Jewish God and there's the Christian God. I mean, it is absurd. Especially for people who espouse, one God, but they think one God means, who's the top God. But this is absurd, and it's unfortunate, that people, the Christians, who build their whole mythology around the Torah, certainly should be forced to have to look into the Torah and see what the Torah says. Because the kind of division they make is divide and conquer. I mean, there's a few very good examples of this. One about homosexuality. It's written in the Torah that God despises homosexuality, but, and there's a big but, only Jewish men. That's because this is a thing, there's 7 commandments to all people, and one of them is not homosexuality. I mean, there is a commandment for all people to make laws about sexuality. I mean, we can't just go out there and just everything is, Hefker is just, you do whatever you want, some guy's wife, a child. No, we have to make laws to protect people. What happens, if a woman drinks too much? I mean, there should be a protection. She's not like, she's not open game. So there's laws that we have to make about it, but the law of homosexuality only refers to Jewish men. It has to do with the circumcision, and these are things that we do because we're Jewish, and no one to do them, and so from God's perspective, if a Jewish man is with another man, God finds that disgusting. But if no one's Jewish, hey, God's down for it. There's a part in the Talmud that says that if we put honey into the incense that they burned in the temple, it would be so sweet no one could stand against it. So they asked, so why don't we do it? Sounds like a good thing. And the answer is God said not to. So one could apply that also to homosexuality. And I've been told that there's a pleasure, at least with man, that is just really, really high. And oftentimes men who experience that just have no desire for women after that. And that's all right. That's their, there's no prohibition against that whatsoever, except the church. The church takes that out of the Torah and says God hates also homosexuals. And also lesbians. There's no lesbians in the Torah because women being with women is not considered sexual. It's just considered women. And then there's, abortion. According to the Torah and the Quran, abortion is only relevant after 40 days from conception. Before that, to terminate a pregnancy is not abortion. But the Christians say, no, it happens at conception. Now we have a big fight. And there's something else I wanted to mention. There's all sorts of things, man. But it just, it ties itself to the Torah. It translates the Torah in a way which is incorrect as testament instead of teaching. In a testament, we don't ask questions. In a teaching, we do ask questions. And it sells it at the same thing, that this is the extension of this. They say, the Jews, we have the severe God, and they have the kind God. And this is all bullshit. There's one God. And God has all attributes, but is none of those attributes. And that's another thing they teach, a monotheism. There's no monotheism in the Torah. That's not what one means. One means everywhere, all the time, to everybody. That's one. So, and the church has taught people to think in dogmatic ways. And that's why we have the problems that we have now in America, because people are not thinking logically, they're thinking dogmatically. That I love this this candidate. Doesn't matter what he says, what he does, he's the dude, man. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, you wouldn't get married like that. The guy doesn't treat me right. He doesn't, but he's is that the whole trip with dogma. What's the whole trip with dogma? Yes, the whole thing with dogma is that the least logical, the greater the dogma. Like if your dogma is, well, I don't know, you should do good every day. You could do that. That's not such a problem. But if you see, but that's not what they do. They pick something like the moon's made out of cheese, and we know it's not. But it's such a far-fetched thing to think that that shows the great faith they have to believe in such a dogma, which is to me is kind of weird. And it certainly has affected our politics and our whole way of life. But people can do it however they want. Every people want it, except when you start taking another people into it and making all sorts of spurious claims, untrue, impossible to prove, and that are really detrimental to that people, like saying that a Jew is God. Jews are not God. They just act that way. But Jews are not God. And you can't put them up on the cross and pray to him. And the Jews were always afraid to say this because they're always outnumbered. I dare the Christians to do that to Muhammad. They wouldn't be around for very long. They wouldn't stand for that. But the Jewish people, we have been in exile and oppressed for so long in the world that the rabbis are afraid to raise their head and tell the truth. Instead, they got in bed with the church. And I hope they're having a good time there, because when they get out and die and go to heaven, they're going to be big time embarrassed for what they did. Because, a lot of control is ceded to the rabbis in the Torah. However, that's only if a person asks them. But they don't have the right to make a law and to say everyone, they do it. They make laws, say everyone has to do this. This is God's will. This is God's will for the rabbis, but not for the rest of us. The rabbis have to do it. We don't have to do it. And you're making the Jewish people into a mockery because you won't tell the truth. Anyways, so that's very severe in the ending the week of severity. But sometimes you need severity. It says, spare the rod and spoil the child. Well, not into hitting children, but it's a metaphor. And it just means that sometimes, you got to tell the truth, even though it's hard, even though it's disquieting, even though it's, no one's going to kill us for us now. Before, if you made the littlest statement, they'd come out and kill you. They used to get the Jewish rabbis have to debate them, in front of everyone, and it was really hard for them because they could succeed, but then they would bring violence upon the community, and if they didn't succeed, then the Jews would think, Christianity is the way to go. So they'd have to figure clever things out. So once there's a story about the Radak, I think, I don't remember. But he was in Spain and they had challenged him to a debate. So in front of everyone, so they asked him, why don't you accept, the birth of Jesus? So he said, well, how was he conceived? So he said, the angel whispered in Mary's ear. How did he give birth? How did she give birth? The way women give birth. So he says, us Jews, we can't accept it because we have a law that the way the seed goes in, the child comes out. So the only way we could believe this is if Jesus was born from Mary's ear. So it was one of these kinds of comedic moments that he didn't win and he didn't lose. So anyways, enough of this. Now we're in the time that the truth has to be told. And if the truth is told, we will destroy religion by taking away their tax break. And they're so rich because they pay no taxes on their property. And this has to come to an end because this is America, and in the Constitution, there's no such thing written that they don't get to pay taxes. Bullshit. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful Shabbat, a day of rest. And keep smoking, keep getting high, man, because the higher the better. All right. Bye-bye. See you next week.